Loading program, Trekommendations.
Welcome to Trekommendations, a Star Trek podcast that seeks out new guests to share hidden gems from the Star Trek franchise. My name is Jason, and joining me on the show today is Aaron Vanderkley from Voyages fan film, and also you might have seen him at the 10 Forward Test Kitchen. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. You're one of the more interesting time zones I have to navigate, so that's
Yes.
fun. But and that has led me in the past to have discussions with people about why we don't see time zones at all in Star Trek. Really, you're rocking up to a planet, and it doesn't matter where they are on the planet. Time zones seem to be the same. And as someone that navigates time zones a lot, I don't understand why this is a thing.
I wish I knew as well. Even like getting used to different, like being on Deep Space Nine where it's 26 hours and more power to them.
And I'm always curious to know if transporter technology would make jet lag better or worse.
True. I suppose it would be a bit like Doctor Who as well. There doesn't seem to be any jet lag when traveling in the TARDIS, so it must be the same.
There we go. I mean, these are the big questions we should be asking. But talking of questions, we're going to have some calibration questions for you in just a second. Before we launch into that, if you've been hearing any new sound effects in the episode, well, that is thanks to Ryan and Tara from Starship Tempest for helping to make that happen. And again, if you want to help build up the back half of the show with the incoming transmissions, you can leave comments or reviews, or you can email me, trekommendations@gmail.com, or contact me through the various social medias at Trekommendations. So that will help with the back end of the show. But now we move into calibration questions.
Calibrating.
So Aaron, to help the audience get an idea of some of your Star Trek tastes, I've just got a few questions for you today.
Okay.
First one, you might see that these have been tailored slightly for you. What food or drink would you most like to try in the Star Trek universe?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know why, but Andorian cabbage soup always comes to mind. I don't know why. It's one of the I don't think we've ever seen it, but it's mentioned a few times, and it intrigues me greatly. What an Andorian cabbage looks like, what color it is, and yeah, it's soup function.
I mean, that's a great answer, because this is such an open-ended question. I have no idea where you would go with that. But I mean, just the idea of if you told me cabbage soup, I would have been very disappointed. You add the word Andorian there, and suddenly it's a game changer.
Yeah.
Okay. And if anyone has listened to the last 20 episodes, they know I'm a big Andorian fan. I feel like we don't get them enough in the shows. I want to see more of them on the bridge of various starships. And if I get to see them walk up to a replicator and order some Andorian cabbage soup, I'm going to be happy as well. So that's
it should be a must. Yeah. Wow.
Great first answer. Obviously, Starfleet Academy has recently come out, and I quite like to do these kind of what if we swapped role questions. So if you could take any previous captain from the various Star Trek shows we've had and put them in as the Chancellor of Starfleet Academy, who would it be and why?
That's a hard one. I feel like the current Chancellor to me is a little bit of a mix of Janeway and Kirk. So I feel like having them in either role will probably have the same outcome. So, maybe Captain Pike?
Yeah.
Just because I feel like in Strange New Worlds he's surrounded by a lot of youthful energy, so I feel like that would work well. He's also very sort of empathetic, but I feel like he can be a bit of a hard ass. So, yeah, I reckon Captain Pike.
Okay, nice. And I mean, that's of all the choices, it's the most possible for us to film because
Yes.
He's probably looking to jump to a new show now anyway, so that would be
This is true. Perfect opening.
Excellent. Okay, final question. We're going back to your fan film roots here. If you could get any actor, I'm going to say living or dead, from Star Trek to appear in one of your fan films? Like, who would you most like to work with?
Oh, so I tried to do a Chakotay prequel standalone film a few years ago, and I've revisited it 3 times trying to find the right actor for the role, and I cannot find anybody, at least locally, that could embody any sort of resemblance to Robert Beltran's Chakotay in a younger form. So I feel like if I could go back in time and snatch a younger Robert Beltran to do this Chakotay prequel, that's who I'm picking.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'd love it. And then him not realizing what, and he's like, but who is this character? I don't know who this
Yeah,
character is. He's like, don't
yeah,
worry. One day you'll know.
yeah.
And then one day, his agent calls. He's got, I've got an audition for you. It's this role in a Star Trek show. The character's name is Chakotay, and he's like, oh, it's the role I've been waiting for.
I mean, hopefully, I mean, it might be disappointing. Maybe the fan film might be slightly better than what ended up being in Voyager for him. So, who knows?
It's a bold call, but it could be. It could be. Oh,
We'll never
excellent,
know.
Aaron. Wonderful. Okay. I feel like we've calibrated you nicely. We're ready to go into your Trekommendation proper. And for that, now, again, I'm hoping these sound effects are working. We're going into Red Alert. Aaron, hopefully you've seen that I have added to the screen our countdown timer. We've only got 60 seconds. Please, could you tell us what is your Trekommendation and why you've brought it to the show?
Okay, so my recommendation is a first-person shooter video game called Star Trek Voyager Elite Force. It was released in 2000, and in the game you play as Alex Monroe, who's like a tactical specialist in a team called the Hazard Team, and basically Voyager's thrown into this sort of starship graveyard, and you have to basically defend the ship, investigate what's going on, and try and ultimately save the day. It had all the original cast in it, which was awesome. You got to explore the ship. There was a multiplayer mode where you got to play as different characters from Star Trek, and there was like a death match and capture the flag. But the best part of it was the fact that it made this huge online community of people who made custom skins and maps and single player games and like total conversions for the games. And I think that is the coolest part of the whole Elite Force journey, and I think that's why people should check it out.
Amazing. Look at that. With mere seconds to spare. The podcast has been saved. Well done.
Thank goodness.
Okay, so it's a Trekommendation I know, which is always interesting. So I remember it being released. I am of the gaming generation that was probably when I was gaming more than ever.
Yeah.
Around those times.
Yeah.
It's interesting because recently on Trekking Up North, they whenever they couldn't do a review episode, Captain Goodwill he started a playthrough of Elite Force. So it's also something that I've seen quite recently. And it's one of those things where probably my memory of it and then the reality of it were also quite different. And I don't know why they haven't like re-released it, or you can't get it on any of the, maybe you know why, maybe there's some licensing issue there, I don't know, but like you don't get it on like the PlayStation Plus. They've got the classics catalog, they've got all the old games. Why is this not there?
I think when it was released on PlayStation, it didn't do very well, and I think they had some sort of conversion problems with it, and I
Right.
think that was potentially the basis for why it didn't rate so well. But I'm pretty sure, certainly on the PC gaming world, I think it's released on is it GOG or
Yeah, I think
GOG.com?
that's
Yeah,
where Michael was getting it to play it. Have you played
yeah.
it recently?
I have. I have it. I have the original CD, and there's one computer that can play it still. And yeah, occasionally, if I'm waiting for something to convert or download, I will just chuck it on and just go through a holo match or a single player mission just for a bit of nostalgia.
Yeah. Do you feel it still holds up as a game?
I think as a game, I think it does. Obviously, the graphics are very dated, but I think
Yeah.
it was just that sort of golden age of like I'm a child of the 90s. I remember how the personal computer entered the home and um, the evolution of gaming, and yeah, it was just an era where I think Activision were releasing, they had a 10-year license and they pretty much released 1 or 2 games a year, in that point, and they were all different. There were strategy games like Away Team and like Armada. There was a Bridge Commander, and then there was this first-person shooter. And I think the Voyager aspect and the story worked for the first-person shooter. And I think that's
Right.
potentially why it holds up the best because it fits the Voyager story.
Yeah. So do you think if it had been, Enterprise, Elite Force, it just wouldn't have worked kind of in the same way?
I mean, I reckon if they did like a Mako one and it was set like during the Zindi arc, that would make perfect sense. And I wonder whether that like the Mako thing ended up being an inspiration from Elite Force because sort of other aspects of the game filtered through the shows as well. But yeah, I think because Voyager was in a very dangerous area of space and that particular scenario of the game meant that they needed to have a specialist tactical team. I think that's why it works so well. Because, like,
Has that
logically, with the other Star Treks, it doesn't really make sense to put the main
No.
characters or your bridge crew in dangerous situations, but for the game, it does.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point actually. If you've got a limited pool of officers, you're going to have to start using these people, right? Whereas and that was one of the, the nice things about Voyager was that isolation, right? Like you can't just, if Picard's in trouble, really in trouble, everyone's a phone call away, and eventually either they'll turn up or they can do something behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But yeah, Voyager, you got nothing. Like you're there, no one is coming to help, so it does make sense that you'd have to have this sort of squadron. Is there any like tie-in material to it? Do you know? Were there any books or comics or anything that kind of explored the
So there was a
game?
comics book that came out, I think, a year afterwards. That was a tie-in to it, but it was sort of very loosely based
Yeah.
on the story. But yeah, otherwise, I think aside from Elite Force 2 coming out, that was based in the TNG era a few years later. Um, it's not really sort of covered
Mm,
anywhere else.
yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, it's ripe for a fan film. That's what I'm hearing. It's ready to be made. I do want. It's interesting here with like the Mako thing, and then now with Academy and the um. Oh man, I've only seen the episode once, so I'm trying to remember what it's called. Was it like the War Academy that they were saying? What was the
Oh
other
yes,
school?
yeah,
Yeah.
War Academy, I think, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be interesting to see. Again, you're getting, because I often think about the, like, you've listed off a few games there. I'm always curious of like, why did we never, and obviously back then there were like limitations on how big a game could be and on, what we could make. But I feel like now it would be so easy to just grab the different elements. Like this game had the best ship combat, so we're going to use that for when you're in the ship, and then when you beam down to the planet, we'll take the Elite Force style, and it'll be first person. Or, to be honest, I'm too old to play first person games now. They make me sick, which is sad for me to admit. But yeah, I get really bad motion sickness now when I start playing first person.
You know what? I recently downloaded the Indiana Jones game and I was playing it with my partner. And as he was playing, I was watching and I was like, oh, I feel a bit motion sick. And I think I have to leave because this is so
Yeah,
I get that.
yeah. I took was it Avatar? Is it Tales of Pandora? Whatever, like that one. I thought, oh, that'd be really great, and I didn't realize it was all first person unless you're
Right.
like on, because on the box you can see some third person stuff, but I think it's only if you're like on vehicles or creatures or whatever. And I started playing it and like running through this like beautiful scenery, it looks lovely, but I'm just like I can't do this. so if it could be Elite Force but also with a third person aspect, that would be
Yeah.
fine for me. But I just think like you could take these elements and combine them, and you could make it like a really amazing Star Trek game.
Yeah, I
And I
was really
don't
hoping
understand.
that Star Trek Online was going to be a bit like that. I think I played that when it initially came out, but it did sort of have that space combat and then
Yes,
the third person bit. But yeah, you're right. If someone could marry those elements together to create the ultimate Star Trek game, that would be cool.
I just don't understand why we can't get like. I mean, I think Rich. So there's this Voyager game coming out soon. You looking forward to that as a Voyager fan? I'm guessing you're a Voyager fan. Like this is
I
what
am.
I'm gleaning from all of this.
It was
Um,
my show when I was a kid.
yeah, more than Deep Space Nine then, because it's a similar time period. So it's not like, oh, I grew up with. It's rare to be like, oh, I grew up with Voyager, not I grew up with Voyager and Deep Space Nine and
So
the
I th
tail end of TNG.
I think the issue stemmed from when it was shown on TV here. It had like the death slot, and my dad used to tape it, and
Right.
they must have only shown Voyager. I don't think they bothered with Deep Space Nine. So that's my exposure to it as a child. But also, like my dad, unfortunately, was in the camp of Deep Space Nine is very boring, so we don't like that one, and
Really?
I never watched it
Oh, really?
until
Wow.
recently. I did a proper watch through. We did it as a family, watching through the whole thing, and it is without a doubt, I think, the best Star Trek show. It has held
Has
up
your dad
so
like
well.
since taken back his opinions on Deep Space Nine, or is he still?
I think it's that thing of a bit like early TNG where it took a while to find its feet. Deep Space Nine also had that issue. And I think, because it took so long to come to Australia, it wasn't the days where you could, uh, it was cast at the same time or it appeared on
Yeah.
the platform at the same time. It just took years to get here and it was old by the time it got here. And it just, yeah, I wasn't interested. But I think, yeah, watching it again now, especially with world politics going on, I mean, this is a kicker
It,
of a show.
it, it's funny because I talk to my kids at times about like pre-streaming era, and similar to like being in the UK compared to being in the US, similar things of like we were getting shows quite a lot later, um, with, but I should tell them about Australia. I should be like, imagine getting a movie a year later than everyone else, or TV shows like 2, 3, 4 years later, and like now we stream at the same like these new episodes are released, we all get to watch it globally at the same time. Amazing. But yeah, once upon a time it was not like
Yeah.
that. They don't understand this.
No.
So I'm gonna have to bring Australia into the discussion. That will give me even more power in my argument, I think. No, that's interesting. I mean, Deep Space Nine, I think, could have been another. That could be another interesting one to do, like an Elite Force style game. Obviously, because then you had the whole war that went. So there again is sort of a fitting set. I think it is nice if it can. Like, you don't want another game that's just been reskinned to look like Star Trek, right? And it doesn't make sense. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great game. It looks good. It plays well, but why? You know, I mean, and that was a little bit the problem people had with like Picard in First Contact, right? It was like this Shakespearean diplomat is suddenly John McClane. Like, what's going on? And I think you could have that a bit with yeah, if you just reskin the wrong thing. But I think like Deep Space Nine and the whole Dominion War, that could be an interesting setting, or even like the Romulan War that
Yes.
we
I
never
love
get
that.
to see.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think it's at the time the way the license worked is that Interplay I think had the original series license and maybe some of the next generation and Simon and Schuster had the Deep Space Nine license. So I think the developers actually wanted to do a TNG game and they couldn't,
Right.
and then they wanted to do a Deep Space Nine game and they couldn't. So they were handed Voyager. So I mean, yeah, by that logic, it probably would have been more exciting and relevant to have a Dominion War sort
Yeah,
of game like that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, but yet they did. They did a great job, and people are still. How you mentioned the like the online community behind it. It's like I was never. I think one because I played it on PlayStation. Because I used to work in a like video game shop, but it was PlayStation, Nintendo, Sega, all that kind of stuff. Not there was a little bit of PC games, but because it was also like a rental place, you can rent out PlayStation games, you can't rent out PC games because then people just
Yeah.
clone them and then it's done, right? So it focused much more on console. So I played it that way, which meant I never played it online. So I know nothing about the online community behind Elite Force. My question is that community still active?
As far as I'm aware, I think in terms of people playing a multiplayer of the game, I think that people can still do that and people still do that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there was probably an era maybe 10 years ago where it sort of faded off and people stopped going. But I mean, I remember being a kid going to this particular website, I think it was like Filefront, and going every day to see what new skin or map or mod someone had uploaded to the site. So it was active, I think, straight from
Yeah.
when the game was released to maybe the early 2010s,
Yeah.
I would say.
I I love how I was talking to someone the other day. We were trying to like talk about stuff that happened, 20 years ago. And I think they said, oh, it's like 20 years ago we went. Actually, it was last week's episode. Like 20 years ago, they went to a convention and it was still in the 2000s. I was like, that just doesn't sound right. And you
No.
think like, oh, what are you saying? So it's always funny when we're trying to remember past dates and we're like, oh, 2010? No, can't be right. Um, with regards to like the mods and the things like that, have you got any like that were favorites for you? Anything you remember that kind of sticks in your mind and stands out now, all
So
these
there,
years later?
there was one that I have a beta demo for, and it was, if you remember the Voyager episode Worst Case Scenario, where B'Elanna finds Tuvok's holo program and he's like made a tactical training scenario if the Maquis took over.
Yeah.
So someone did a mod of the game, a single player mod of the game, where you play as a doctor and you basically help Chakotay take over the ship, and they were gonna carry on that story basically. And I think they remapped the entire Voyager so it was more accurate to the show. In the original version, there's no rounded corridors. So in this version, they had done that. They'd relit it, retextured it. They got dialogue from the whole of Voyager, chopped it up. This is like pre-AI, chopped it up so they could get each syllable so they could make new dialogue. Um, and it just seemed like such a cool concept. I remember seeing screen caps of it, and I found the demo online and played it, and then they never released
Oh
the
no.
full game. But that was the best, and I think that was the best use, I think, of the
Yeah.
whole Elite Force thing, was to redo missions like that. But another creator made recreated Starbase 11 from the original series
Right.
and turned it into this massive map, and it had a concourse and all these different buildings, and it had holo missions that you could play. And then they did like a virtual Voyager, but it was on one of the TOS ships. They did a Captain Proton single player game. All these skins, it was insane. But the level of skill, unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I think unfortunately the thing was that uh, one of the cool things was that Raven, who were the developer, released a source code for the game so people could mod it and do things. But I think that probably made other people very aware how much effort and time went into making the original game, that sort of once you started trying to do that, very quickly weren't able to. So
Yeah.
that was kind of a bit of a shame.
I just always find it like, and I get that, it's always hard with properties like, I mean, Star Trek particularly has had, a lot of sort of rights issues with who owns what and what you can release on this, and which uniforms can be shown in a certain thing compared to another thing, and characters and this and that, and TV versus movies, and there's been so many like weird little rights issues, and then video games are always notoriously tricky in and of themselves because of like licenses that expire and music and stuff like that. But I think when you have a group that are so passionate that they're going to go and do all of this, like, to me that's just telling me, oh, there's an audience here. Like, if we release something, like, look how much, like, how passionate these people are, they're going to do all of this. So following up with a game a few years later, it just would make sense. And it's always a shame that it's probably not developers that don't want to do it, but it's kind of the behind the scenes shenanigans that that block this stuff. Has there been any whispers about like any kind of similar thing coming out in the future? Do you know? I don't really check like gaming forums very much and stuff. So
Not that I'm aware of. I think with what you're saying, I think the Voyager game, I think, came from the fact that there were some passionate fans at that particular um, uh, game developer that wanted to do the game,
mm,
and that's how they pursued the rights for it. But I think it is a matter of, yeah, if you work for a gaming company and you're a Star Trek fan, that's the avenue that you have to go through.
Yeah.
It's just that classic thing that properties don't recognize the potential they've got for their licenses. I think it's the same reason why no one really makes Star Trek costumes to sell like decent ones at an affordable
Yeah.
price, and they don't make Star Trek props and a communicator badge that looks like it does in the show and makes the right noise. It just blows my mind that things like that are not
Yeah.
marketed for the people that would buy them, yet we get garbage.
Yeah. You've kind of got two extremes, right? You've got like passionate fans that are making stuff that is like so screen accurate and just looks incredible, but because they're a passionate fan, it's costing them a lot to produce this stuff or to ship this stuff out, and it's so expensive. And yeah, and then you just get kind of like kids' toys.
Yeah, yeah,
Basically, just sort of,
yeah.
yeah, it's especially when you've got a community that loves to cosplay, that loves to dress up, that loves to go to conventions, and then you've got other, other companies that are like, I mean, Star Wars make they have that whole kind of scale of like cheap for your kids
Yeah,
stuff, screen accurate, but it don't like swing it around because it's it's fragile and it's just a display piece. Too, here's a mid-range, looks nice, but you can also use it functionally, kind of prop.
yeah,
So you'd think you'd look at that and go, oh, there's the pattern, the model. Let's do that.
yeah. But
But
they
yeah,
they haven't worked that out. It's a bit like the I think there's a company called Hero Within that made jackets that look
right.
like the Star Trek costumes. But again, they have to go on through that loophole of, well, you're not allowed to make costumes because you don't have that license, so you're just gonna have to make apparel and call it
Mhm.
a jacket rather than a uniform, and just things like that. That it's like, why are you making this difficult for yourself?
Yeah, because I think sometimes people don't know like what to search to find that stuff, right? And they just search Star Trek uniform. I mean, I think the searches are going to be Star Trek uniform, Star Trek costume. Like they're the two. No one is looking for Star Trek inspired jackets. Like,
Yes,
but
exactly.
actually, that would
Yeah,
help you. Um,
yeah.
I mean, this is not related to Elite Force, but you've done your fan films and stuff like that. Where do you get your like? Did you make most of the props? Did you find somewhere where you could buy them? I guess again, and you've got the issue of being in Australia, which also makes like shipping and deliveries and stuff tricky once again.
Yeah, it's a very expensive thing to try and get stuff over to Australia. But yeah, originally when we started, we had made, I think, two Enterprise jumpsuits. And we used, I think, those same two for a couple of films. And then that was just the time where the Chinese market on eBay opened up, where there were people making knockoffs and things like that. So that's how we sort of filled out the ranks, as it were. And then again, it's that thing of yeah, the most accessible and the most accurate or commercially available are unfortunately unlicensed products. And it's like, well, I would love to buy licensed Star Trek costumes, but if you don't make them, I can't buy them. So you can't
Yeah,
put a restriction on me because they do not exist. So yeah, but I mean, otherwise, yeah, fan replicas and kits for phases and tricorders and things like that, 3D printed stuff. Um, yeah, I'm sure people would happily pay for things, and I'm sure people would be happy to be supported by Paramount and CBS if they were to provide those things as almost advertising and marketing for them. But that just doesn't happen.
yeah. Which and it's it's crazy as well because you think like you just take it outside of Star Trek and you're like, look at sports teams. Like people want to wear the jersey of their favorite team. They want to kind of wear it out and about and rep it and show people the stuff. And I think it's interesting. So I was recording the episode yesterday that will have come out last week, and while I was recording it, someone started following me on Instagram, and I was like, huh, that's odd because this is somebody who knows me through other work I do online, but that is not Star Trek related in any way, and they found my Star Trek account and started following that. And like I was like, that's how like one, how have they found it? That's that was my first question. And two, interesting that they started following it. And I'm thinking, well, next time I see them, we might have a chat about Star Trek. But I have no idea that this person likes Star Trek, knows anything about Star Trek, because it's just in the scenario I've encountered him in, we've always been focused on something else. So,
Yep. Yeah.
you know, it just hasn't come up. Where you're thinking like if people just, you know, you had more like apparel that you could kind of wear out or just little nods to Star Trek here and there, it sparks conversations. And then you're like, oh, I didn't know you were a big Star Trek fan. Yeah, I love it. And then you can kind of, it just feels like free advertising.
Yes, yes, I agree. Yeah. I remember once I went into work and I had like a burgundy knitted jumper on and I had the
Yeah,
Picard like family crest on my jumper. And
right.
someone was like, "Oh, is that from Harry Potter?" And I was like, "No, it's a Star Trek thing." And they're like, "Oh, okay, wow." Like it just sparked a bit of a conversation
Yeah,
about Star Trek and that, there was a new show out and why the character wore it and blah blah blah. So yeah.
yeah. There you go. See, Paramount, we're doing the work for you guys. We're doing it for help us out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to bring him on as a director for or an actor for one of your new projects, Aaron is available.
Very valuable at the moment. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's circle back to Elite Force. Did you clock the game? Have you finished it? I mean, the
Oh
single
yeah.
player mode. I'm assuming.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A long time ago.
Yeah. A long time ago. And were there? I'm trying to think. Were there like? So now you know, like now that you got loot crates and you got like microtransactions, all of this. This is all predating all of that kind of stuff. So were there like unlockables? Was there? Were you rewarded for your hard work within the game?
No,
No.
no, there was nothing like that, unfortunately. The only thing was that they released an expansion pack, I think a year later, that had this virtual Voyager mode where you could tour Voyager. They added new skins and maps to the Hollow Match version of the game. I think the original version of the game didn't have Jerry Ryan's voice as Seven of Nine, so there was a patch for that. And I think they also must have had a contest where they picked fan maps that people had made and they offered them as part of that expansion pack too. So they really did embrace the sort of fan creators very quickly, I think, in that show.
Yeah.
But aside from that, that was it.
Did you get the expansion pack?
So when I got it again because we're in Australia, it took so long, but
All right, it
it
was
came,
already.
yeah, it came with Armada 1, Armada 2, Elite Force, and the expansion pack.
Oh, that's a good bundle to get, though. I tell you,
Yeah,
it's.
yeah.
I haven't played Armada in such. Oh man, I have to fire up some of these. I've changed my PC, so I've actually could play now all of these games and stuff. So I should think about doing that. But I you know, but where do I have the time? Where do I have the time
Exactly.
when I'm
Yeah.
recording podcasts, editing podcasts, being a dad? Like
I think
it's
I think about my dad because I used to play with my dad and we used to play the Hollow Match on the LAN connection or we played Armada together, Armada 2 all
yeah,
the time. And I'm like, how did he manage to do that? And I don't have any time.
yeah. And this is a guy who hates Deep Space Nine. You got to remember that. You got to remember that. He wasn't inspired by Benjamin Sisko to be Dad of the Year like that. He didn't
No,
have that.
no, no.
That is fascinating, though. Okay, I want to. While I've got you, I'm just going to ask some questions about your food channel at the moment as well,
Cool.
because why not? While you're here, was there? And let's tie it into the game. Did you see any food in Elite Force?
Yes, actually. So in the expansion pack, one of the many things you could do was go up to a replicator, and if you hit the use button, it would replicate something at random.
Yeah. Were you
And
able to get Andorian cabbage soup though? That is the question.
no, but
Uh,
in the mess hall there was a pad that if you went up to that, it actually listed recipes with ingredients and the methods and things like that. And I actually did, when I looked back at the game recently, went back and was like, are any of these recipes any good that we could use for this show that we're doing? Um, so yeah, there was food in there.
and are they?
I don't know yet. We'll have to see. There was I think the Alfarian hair pasta. That's one that I'm intrigued by. So
Yeah.
might give that a go.
What? I mean, that is funny because that was just such a throwaway line to try and get us into talking about the food stuff, and the fact that there was a really great answer is incredible. But also speaks to like that's what I want in immersion and in a game and stuff. And you know, and not to keep beating like the the Starfleet Academy dead horse, but people getting annoyed that people are kind of like. So I think there's people getting angry because it's like, how could this character exist, or why is this character there? And they're just looking at it as an excuse to be angry. And then you've got people that are like, how could this character be there? Like that's a question. I'd like an answer. Like there must be an answer, and I'm intrigued to know what the answer is. You know, the same way I'm intrigued to know how a Klingon was in Starfleet and on the bridge of the flagship. Like that's, you know, how could that happen? And then, oh, okay, oh, he was adopted. He grew up on Earth. Okay, oh that's interesting. Like backstory, great. It's good to know. Um, but I don't think it's wrong. So I love that, you know, even a silly thing like, oh, there's recipes and there's a replicator in it because we're on a Star Trek ship and that's what happened. Like that makes me happy. That's the level of, and people being like, it's just a TV show. I'm like, I know it's just a TV show. I know that. I'm not. This isn't keeping me up at night. But I think it's interesting. It's one of the reasons we like this TV show or this series of TV shows is because of the layers that you go to kind of make the world feel like a fully realized place,
And I think that's
in
what
my humble opinion.
the game developers found that was really important when they were doing the game was that I think they were inspired by Half-Life in that there was lots of sort of non-playable characters who had conversations that you could go up and eavesdrop into, and that would help you um, not only in the game but immerse you in the world. That yeah, there's Tom and Chakotay are having a chat in the mess hall about how they hate Neelix's food, and you know there's personal logs you can access, and you can go down the Jeffrey tube and find the computer core. So I think
Yeah.
when they're fans of the show and they know that that's the type of thing that fans resonate with, I think that's really great, and clearly that adds value for money when you're a fan playing it.
Yeah. Who would you rather cook with, Neelix or Cisco?
I'm gonna have to say Neelix, just because I feel like it would be very exciting. Cisco,
Yeah.
I feel like I'd be overshadowed by the legacy of the food. Like, you know, his dad has a kitchen and he's got his dad's recipes and then he's got his version of it, and I would feel pressure that I would be doing it wrong.
All right. Yeah.
I've seen very recently the scene where he's got most of the senior staff cooking with him. It's just I felt their stress in that, and I think
Yeah.
that's how I would be too.
Oh, I should have added Pike to the mix as well. We've talked about Pike earlier. You know, he's another.
True.
There's a lot of guys that like cooking in Star Trek. You know, that's
In our research, one thing that has been really clear is how much food and food culture is in Star Trek, and it's something that isn't usually a primary focus. But I was reading a thing the other day, and someone I think said that out of the 70 whatever episodes of original series, 71 or 3 of them have food in it.
mm,
And there are people eating or they're having a meal together. You know, Next Generation had a whole set that was a bar. In Deep Space Nine, there's a restaurant. In Voyager, there's a mess hall. In
yeah.
Enterprise, they've converted the briefing room to the captain's mess. And yeah, in all these shows, there is a food component. It's about being communal eating. So yeah,
Which, when you think about the concept of Star Trek, you know, and exploring, you know, and meeting new people and new races and new civilizations, if you, you know, if you travel on Earth, like food, so language and food are the two ins within any kind of culture, right? And it's such a big thing. And if you get that, like that's what changes you from being like a tourist to a friend, is embracing the food, embracing the language. Language isn't an issue because you've got the universal translator, so it just sort of eliminates that as being a way in. But food is one of the things that, you know, my wife's from the Philippines. Like Filipinos food is a big part of their culture and their community. We spent a lot of time with people from different parts of Africa. Similar thing, like, you know, you talk to them and they're a bit, as soon as you start talking about local dishes and food that you've had and tried with other, they just open up to you. It's like, oh, you understand us. So it makes sense that you're meeting new races, people you've never met before. Food would be like an integral part of their culture and the people, usually, unless they don't eat because they're a species that doesn't eat food, and
yeah,
in which
yeah, yeah.
case, what are you going to do?
But I think, you know, in Next Generation and in Enterprise, one of the first things that happens when someone comes aboard the ship is they share a meal, or they go to 10 forward and they've got a
Yeah,
banquet, or yeah, there is always that sort of offering of sharing a meal together.
yeah. It's like, it's a good job we can all digest the same things. That's really, really important. I love the when Cisco cooks for Nog and Jake, and he's like really enjoying the food, and then he says it's got like grub worms like ground in it. I think that's fun because a thing that I don't like is when you try a food. I've never understood when someone tries a food, they say it's delicious, and then you tell them what the food is, and then they react badly. Because I can get reacting badly before, but once you've eaten it and you like it, it's too late now. You like it. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just, well done. So
Exactly.
congratulations, Jake. You like the worms. That's next time you're on Ferenginar, just chow down. It's fine.
It reminded me of recently I went out for breakfast with my partner, and he got this big breakfast thing, and one of the ingredients was blood sausage. And I was like, "Do
Right.
you know what that is?" And he said, "No." And I said, "I'll tell you afterwards." So he ordered it, loved it, and I said, "Just to let you know, blood sausage, this is what it is." And he was like, "Oh, okay, that was really nice." And then he recommended it the next time we went out. So
Yeah.
that's a yeah,
There you go. You see, we've got to be open to new experiences. That's what they
exactly.
say, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say. What was it though that inspired you to start doing the 10 Forward Test Kitchen and like making these recipes?
So we were making fan films, and then circumstances changed, couldn't afford to do any more. So we wanted to try and do something that was still in the Star Trek universe, but um, yeah, didn't have that much effort and cost towards it. So I think around the same time they just released the new version of the Star Trek cookbook, and so we got that and test run a few of the recipes, and we weren't that thrilled with what came out, unfortunately. Um, it just didn't work for us, so we sort of shelved it for a bit, and I really like cooking. I'm half Italian. Like we were talking about before, food's a massive part of Italian culture. Um, and yeah, we just decided, okay, let's do this show, but we're going to come up with the recipes ourselves or modify some of the recipes, and yeah, do a deep dive into what's presented on screen, what the prop makers use to make the food, and yeah, different interpretations that came across, whether it was in a cookbook or the Bajoran Husparat that we did recently was inspired by the food at the Universal theme park that
Right.
they did recently. So yeah, and then do our own version of the dish. We throw in a little fun scene because we still wanted to make the sort of fan film aspect of it. And yeah, that's basically how it came about.
Nice. Yeah, so I'd seen the Voyager fan film page, and like so I was aware of you guys, and then um the test kitchen thing kind of popped up, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, and it I don't know, it stands out a bit more, I suppose, because it's it's a bit more unique. There's lots of fan films that then varying degrees
Yes.
of quality, and it's you kind of got to look into them all to and who's got time to look into everything? That's why you need a show where people can come on and recommend specific ones that are good to check out. That would
Hey.
be, if someone could think of that, then that would solve all our problems.
But that's totally
So
right. You need to sort of crack a niche, and I was surprised that no one had done anything like this before,
as
given
was
that
I.
how much food is in the thing. So yeah, yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, when we released our Hasbro recipe, we gained like 2,000 and something subscribers, and I mean, we'd been doing fan films for 10 years and didn't have that sort of mass flow of people. So clearly, the cooking part spoke to people more than the films.
Yeah. I also think like we mentioned like cosplay, and we mentioned kind of, passionate fans that want to remap stuff, that want to make screen accurate replications of stuff. And I think I mean, that's almost the kind of thing where like you are doing a fan film, and having somebody sit down at a table and there's just food on the table and it's just a throwaway scene, but you look at the table and you're like, huh, they're actually, that looks like food I've seen in Star, like that. They're not just sat down with some chips. They're sat down with sort of Star Trek food. It just adds another layer. So I would think that even if other creators are maybe being like, oh, let me check out this channel because they're giving me some a couple of recipes that I can just knock out that look particularly, you know, Trekky. That's Well, you found a niche. Well done. Congratulations. That's we're always looking for one, and if we can find them, then we benefit from that. I know that's the case. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. But we are going to move into the next part of the show, that is our incoming transmissions.
Incoming transmission.
So I like to just pick out stuff that has been sent my way, whether it's comments, whether it's reviews, whether it's emails. I'm doing a lot of episodes back to back at the moment, which isn't giving much time for new stuff to come in, but eventually we'll catch up. But I thought this was a really nice comment on the video that I'd done about Starfleet Academy itself. Lots of varied opinions on the show, but I
Yes.
thought it's Astrid just left this comment. A good Star Trek episode needs two things. It has to be entertaining, and then secondly, you should be able to watch it with a teenager and then have a conversation where they learn about politics and or how to be a better person. So far, both episodes did that, so it's doing way better than Picard. So I thought, that's not
Yes.
somebody who's clearly loves all Star Trek without hesitation. They got a subtle jab in at Picard at the end there, but that's a nice way of looking at it, right? Like, is it entertaining? Yes. Does it open dialogue? Yes. Therefore, maybe enjoy it, guys.
I think
very nice.
There's there's shows that you can just watch in the background and you get nothing out of other than sort of white noise. And then I think, a decent Star Trek episode has a good moral and something to think about at the end.
Yeah. So as of recording this, we've only had the first 2 episodes. So time will tell on the next one. By the time this comes out, a few more will have been released. So it'll be interesting to see if we have to make any edits and add to what we've said or take out things that we've said, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. Well, thank you, Aaron, so much for joining me. I mean, we've talked a lot about the stuff you're doing, but just once more, if people want to find you online, find out what you're doing, where are the best places that they can get in touch with you?
So on YouTube, please find us at Voyages Fan Film, and on Instagram, we're either Voyages Fan Film or 10 Forward Test Kitchen.
Excellent. So I recommend going to check them out. I'll try and I always say I'll put links and stuff in here, but then it gets spread across different platforms and they work on some and they don't on others. So you know what, guys,
annoying.
you've got thumbs, go and use them yourself to find it. Thank you, Aaron, for your recommendation and also your time. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I will be back next week with another guest and another recommendation.
Ending program.